Hello, everyone. How are y'all? It is Tuesday or Wednesday. So I'm actually gonna do the date today since I didn't do it yesterday until the very end of the show. Discussion right at the top. So that was a little history being made. Almost forgot, but I'm going to start right now by saying, hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, January 4th.
I'm Dan Petru.
Oh,
What? Oh, Mike, you go first?
Yeah, don't worry. I'll edit that out. I'm Michael Agello.
It's been a month. Echo always screws up the opening, so.
I know. I threw you guys by being so on top of it.
Yeah.
We'll try one more time because
Right.
I actually had the camera on me the whole time anyway. So let's just do that. Here we go. Ding, 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 ding,
Right,
ding, ding.
take
ding,
two.
ding. All right.
Not bad.
Here we go. Take two. Taking the camera off of me only. All right. Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, January 4th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Dan Petru.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you Monday through Friday at this time to fill in on the comings and goings in the hockey world, and is brought to you by people like you at patreon.com/hockey. Remember to email me on that little thing I put in there so I can do a special meet and greet with you guys because I've really had some fun already with a couple of them. So make sure you get on there so I can do that, and I can thank you personally for all the help because we really do appreciate it.
And all our female patrons, they also special link there to meet up with Mike.
That's right.
Yes.
All of them, I think.
Just you buy the drinks. Don't take any drinks that he's offering.
Well, it's hard to tell from usernames sometimes if we have any female patrons.
Preferably the blind ones, right, Dan? Thank you.
No. Don't set the bar low. You're ruggedly handsome.
Oh my goodness! Wow, we have just started in the perfect spot here. Anyway, I want to start off with Blue Jackets again because we have to, and
Oh, really?
and it's really interesting because there's a team that has just now won 16 in a row. So we're starting to get to the point now where this is way more than a winning streak, and this is way more than a flash in the pan type situation. And
Here, let's use a little bit of math here. They've won 16 games in a row. They've won straight 20% of their schedule.
That's crazy.
yeah, that's a great point.
And it's not smoke and mirrors either.
No, it's not. And I mean, what is the winning streak? Is it 20?
17.
Oh, it really? I thought it
All
was
time is 17.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh Penguins, I think it was 92-93. Mario Lemieux, Yager, that Penguins, it was 17 in a row.
Wow. So that's something. So they can tie that. What's their schedule coming up? Can we check this out?
They play Washington in Washington on Friday, I believe.
That's a tough one right there.
That's a winnable game.
I don't know I'll check to see what the if they beat Washington, what the
Yeah, I'll check it out too. I think that find out. I'm just impressed by the way they're doing it too. It's just very businesslike, very solid. And holy cow, I mean, they are obviously a team that no one put into the playoffs, or very few teams put in the playoffs, right? And now here they are, definitely in the playoffs. There's no question about that. They've beyond the point where they could play 300 hockey the rest of the way and make the playoffs. They're at a ridiculous rate. So now when you throw a team that wasn't supposed to be in the playoffs into the playoffs, automatically,
okay,
you're in for it now with the other teams. I mean, this just makes this conference so difficult already as it is.
Talk about a script being written perfectly.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, the Blue Jackets play in Washington to tie the record. If they win that, the game to break the record is in Columbus on Saturday night against the New York Rangers. John Tortorella being able to break the all-time win record against the team that fired him.
No, it's great. I mean, and no one really was blaming the Rangers for firing him, but he really has done something unique here. And what's so difficult about this for me is I'm a real big fan of what Tortorella has done on this team. I think he has learned from the past, but there's also that thing that keeps coming back into my head that whenever I talk to people in hockey, they always say, winning is just makes everything right. So,
elite goaltending and elite special teams covers up a lot of blemishes.
Well, that's it, right? And then when you talk about teams, people are saying, well, this team, they're not going to be any good in the playoffs. Well, the two things that win in the playoffs for me are goaltending and special teams. So
because they're slightly above average 5-on-5. I mean, they're middle of the pack possession stats, even strength. But
right.
If you have elite goaltending and elite special teams, that's fine.
I mean, their power play is operating at a clip close to 30%. That's insane. I mean, they scored 2 power play goals last night. I think it was Atkinson and Foligno that had the
Atkinson scores every night.
Yeah, Atkinson's having a career year, and he's been a pretty good, pretty consistent forward. But
it's been ticking up every year. 20 goals, 22 goals, 25 goals, and now it's I've been saying I love the kid. I've seen him play a ton. Being a local kid from Connecticut, and I kind of definitely have followed his career, and it's just like every year there's just steady improvement, and it's just underappreciated. Just a solid player. That's why I always thought the trade talks of him were ridiculous.
Oh yeah, and so did they. I mean, whenever I talk to Blue Jackets, they were always saying, "We don't know why people think that we're going to trade Atkinson."
He reminds me of Zach Parise a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, and very similar. And even in kind of what he means to the team on and off the ice too. It's just he's such a solid player for them all around that it's very hard to ignore what he's done and like you say, scoring every game. I mean, how many All-Stars are the Blue Jackets going to have? That's a question I had too.
Like, I can only take so many.
I know,
I'd say it has to be Bobrovsky. It would probably have to be Werenski,
and then Atkinson.
I'd say 3.
Yeah, it's 3 right there, right? So. And you really can only take so many, like you said. But that's what's amazing is they're doing that in this stars. This is a star-studded division. This is a division that's very hard to get anybody in, as far as just forever for all-star teams. I mean, when you think about it, the players in this division are almost set up before the season even starts.
Right.
When you do this divisional format, there are just when you have Ovechkin, you've got Tavares, you've got Crosby, you've got Mount, you've got them all in this division. They're all on the team.
I would even say that Tavares is having an all-star season. I mean, if the Islanders had to send one person, I think you can argue Anders Lee has had a better year than John Tavares.
Right. No, so I'm going to get to something on the Islanders I think you might find actually encouraging, Dan, which I will actually talk about shortly. But another crazy stat for today. So this is crazy stat day. First of all, Vancouver has claimed Boucher off of waivers.
How many times is he going to get claimed this year?
He's been placed on waivers. This was the 3rd time, or the 3rd or 4th time he's been on 3 teams. He's the Zach Boychuk of 2017 because he's been New Jersey to Nashville, back to New Jersey for a cup of coffee. Then he gets placed on waivers again, and he goes to Vancouver. I'd like to have his frequent flyer miles.
Yeah, and all the jerseys he has from this year. That's got to be crazy. I mean, all the different hats. Every time a guy gets to a team, they give him a bunch of hats. They give him a bunch of shirts to wear to practice. To practices and all that. They've got to wear to these open morning skates.
And those really comfy wind pants, like the most comfortable wind pants you'll ever wear in your life.
He's got a ton of things like that. I mean, you just got to keep it. I know sometimes they don't give you your jersey when you leave. I mean, what that happened in Montreal, right? Famously. But usually you can sneak it out of there. My other crazy stat of today, and I just realizing this, was that Jeff Carter has 21 goals. The Kings are sort of been.
The rest of his team has 18.
Yeah, right. The Kings have been really forgotten about a lot. And it's really interesting how when Jonathan Quick went down, people just said, okay, well, we'll see what happens later with the Kings. We'll get back to him when Quick gets back, as if that was the only thing that this team had going for them. And he is a big thing that we're going for him. But suddenly now, Jeff Carter is 2nd in goals with 21.
They're a tough watch, though. I mean, I've watched them a little bit lately based on my obsessive daily gambling. I've watched a lot of the Kings lately, and it's a brutal. I mean, they have 6 forwards in their top 12 that probably shouldn't even be on an NHL roster. Yeah, no, you're right. They are very, and they play a style that just is like a time traveling thing. They don't play a style that anyone else plays. But they're still in it. They're still winning because they have good. They still, at the end of the day, they still have good defense, and Peter Budaj is keeping them in games. Yeah, and Budaj's done a phenomenal job, and that's been a huge key for them, Mike. Just going back to the waiver on Boucher, just because it's becoming very interesting. The fact that a lot of the times over the last few years, you were able to sneak somebody through waivers, no problem. Right now, you put them on waivers, you better prepare to lose the guy, because anybody who's gone on waivers, like, for example, somebody who needs an energy forward might pick up Matt Nieto, who was placed on waivers today. If somebody needs a backup goaltender, even though Anton Khudobin has another year in his contract, they might roll the dice on it. Boucher and Ty Rattie were placed on waivers yesterday. Rattie's a former 2nd-round pick, has had a couple
opportunities with the Blues, but never anything lengthy, and Carolina picked him up. He's going to get a good long look.
That's a nice claim by Carolina. I think that's worth the risk right there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, people have really taken the Maple Leafs to task about the whole Frank Corrado situation, and there's something going on with the Islanders that's similar until the Halak thing happened with J.F. Berube, where they basically buried him on the roster for a year and a half. But these teams don't want to lose these players. The Leafs may actually think that Corrado can help them down the line, and they don't want to just give them up, put them on waivers, and let somebody else take them.
Real quick, Matt Nieto, just an aside, has the ugliest autograph I think I've ever seen. I mean, honestly, it goes back to like Victor Kozlov. I never thought there'd be an ugly art. It looks like he's either trying to get the pen to start, or it looks like he's drawing waves because he was a member of the Sharks. I mean, here, look at this. I mean, it's just all it is.
Well, look at that.
Yeah, look at that. Could you imagine? This is an expensive card. Could you imagine getting that and you look at that like, gee, thanks.
It's like MMM.
It's just like he's trying to get the pen to start. That's okay.
Crazy.
Yeah, I always know Matt Nieto. I got a card one time signed by him and out of a pack, and I was like, really? That's the best we could do?
That is nuts. Wow. And Dan, credit, you know, I mean, come on, just having a Matt Nieto autographed card at your disposal.
That's a statement about something.
It's a statement that the box wasn't up to snuff.
That's impressive.
No offense, Matt. No offense, but I was hoping for a Tomas Hertl.
So I don't know if you guys got a chance to see last night the return of Shea Weber to Nashville, but I watched it. It was awesome. I think in general, I mean, first of all, he scores against the Predators, which means I think
Radulov was more comical last night.
Yeah, he was. That is definitely more of a, a whole hate. There's a whole big hatred of there. Radulov just doesn't go over all well, but Shea Weber is just so respected among that fan base and will always be. So
the difference between the two receptions was that for the adoring fans of Nashville threw flowers on the ice for Shea Weber. For Radulov, they threw empty bottles of vodka.
That's about right.
I remember when Paul Coffey came back to Hartford after his brief stint with the Whalers, and after very quickly requesting a trade, people threw bags of coffee on the ice. That was a fun cleanup.
Did they really? Wow.
Oh yeah, they threw it right at his head too. I will neither. What's the word I'm looking for?
Was it not
confirm nor deny?
I will neither confirm nor deny that I might have had knowledge to that situation ahead of time that was going to happen.
Wow, interesting. I remember that he was, of course, traded to the Flyers.
Was it Folgers or Maxwell House?
It was in the can. One of them was in that can, so that could have hurt him.
It was chocolate.
The chock full of nuts or whatever. Someone snuck in a can of Maxwell House and chucked it at his head.
And the crazy, and what is truly karma too, that he comes to Philadelphia and he plays really well for a couple games, and it looks like, wow, this is fantastic, Paul Coffey and all that. It's great, Eric Lindros. It's obviously so much speed out there, and then he collides with Lindros at center ice, if you remember right, and knocks himself out for like a month and a half or so.
Yeah. Yeah, he was not very charming. He did not endear himself to the Whaler community.
No, he's an interesting guy. I met him.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah, I've met him a couple times, and he's definitely he's out there. And very quiet, and very very reserved as far as the times I've met him have been.
But he was nice to me. So if you're nice to me, I got nothing against you.
Well, yeah, no, he's been nice to me too. But it's always been on an elevator at some NHL event that I see him. But
you have a lot of elevator stories. I feel like you just hang out in the elevator.
I do. I spent an exorbitant amount of time in elevators with the NHL.
I'm not touching that one.
Yeah, I mean that's where Bobby Clark first met me.
My eyes were glued to the Maple Leafs last night. They're must-watch TV. They are by far the most look. Maybe because I'm not a Maple Leafs fan, I have no rooting interest in it besides my daily fantasy gambling habits. Well, they are by far the most enjoyable team to watch in the league.
Well, we definitely know when they go to an amusement park, we know what their favorite ride is. It's definitely the roller coaster.
It's up and down. Yeah, but you know what? If I'm a Maple Leafs fan, I am excited to see where this team's going to be 2 years from now.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think they're going to be extremely good 2 years from now, but right now they're not. I mean,
but it's still a fun watch. It's must-watch TV.
And I'm entertained. Anybody who watched the Centennial Classic saw 40 minutes of the most boring tactical hockey you'd ever see.
Yes, I actually turned it off for a while.
Followed by 23 minutes of the most exciting hockey that you watch. So it can be that way. And yesterday, the fourth game in a row, we talked about this yesterday with Kevin. The fourth game in a row, they're leading 4-2 in the third period. They blow the lead in 3 minutes and 35 seconds, something like that. And they have the resilience that Kevin was talking about. Mitch Marner scores the go-ahead goal. A minute or so later, John Carlson ties the game at 5-5, and then 22 seconds into overtime, Ovechkin scores the goal. They are exciting. You've got Austin Matthews, you got Marner, you got Nylander, you've got some 7-8 rookies. You've got no defense.
None.
Does not know how to play defense. Meaning, and I'm sure we're going to talk about your column today, Ak. I don't care if they're, at the top of the likely buyer column. They're not buying unless it's somebody who can help them 2 years down the road. If it's a rental, there's not a chance in hell that Lou Lamoriello is giving up short-term or long-term assets for short-term rental.
Well, I wrote the other day about JVR returning to Philadelphia, and that's when I saw this likely buyers. Well, let me explain what happened. So I have the X buyer seller rating charts, which I do every month, and I did last one I did on December 15th. So this one's only a half a month away. So there's not a lot of movement, but there are a couple teams that were notable on this thing, and that really moved a lot. And one of them was Toronto, who were at number 13 in the Eastern Conference, which put them as a likely seller,
right?
And moved up to number 8 in the Eastern Conference, which puts them as a likely buyer. And that's a big swing. I can't remember many times that happening. And I've done this privately, this chart for years, and I can't remember many times that I saw somebody move from a likely seller to a likely buyer, because basically there's strong buyers, likely buyers, and possible buyers, strong sellers, likely sellers, and possible sellers in my chart. So, and so I could see them moving to a possible seller or a possible buyer, but to actually jump 3 categories, and 23 points in this ranking. I mean, it comes from a bunch of different factors. I mean, obviously they're winning, which is true. They're scoring goals, which is true. And there also is a sense of expectation rising in Toronto that is true. And you can't, and as much as they want to deny this and they want to say, okay, no, we're not going to be a good team. Like Dan said, they're too exciting for the expectations not to start to rise. Like when I first did this chart, I had their expectations of making the playoffs around a 3. All right. So that, and now I'm like at around a 5. And now that could move up, which is still not high, because a lot of teams, very, very few teams don't expect to make the playoffs in the NHL. Like most teams do expect to make the playoffs. Most teams are above a 5.
Right.
But, they could easily be, if, they win another 5 or so games in a row, now they're at a 6 or 7, because now they're looking into the playoffs and they're in a division where they can make the playoffs. So,
well, right. And I mean, there is a path that conceivably they can make the playoffs. But what I think is going to happen is, if they stick around where they are right now, out by a few points, contending for that 3rd spot in the Atlantic or one of the wild card spots, it's going to take them from the seller category to the we're not involved in the trade market category.
And I don't know that they can do that, because, I mean, the fact of the matter is, you can sit there and say, yes, we're going to develop this slowly and we're going to continue to develop this slowly. But at some point, if suddenly like Travis Sanheim is available for James Van Riemsdyk,
right,
things change pretty quickly, right?
Well, that's the type of deal I'm talking about. Sanheim is, I believe, 20 years old. He's a former 1st-round pick. I believe in the World Junior he partnered with Morgan Riley back in the day. He's an excellent prospect, and if Mark Hunter and the hierarchy of the Maple Leafs believe that Travis Sanheim is a potential top pairing or top 4 defenseman, I think that they would do a deal where they give up a year and a half or a year and a few months of James Van Riemsdyk for a guy they could potentially hold on to for 6 or 7 years. That's not the type of deal, the type of deal that a lot of people are thinking. If they're close, they should go out and trade for a rental.
Go get Travis Hamonic.
Well, that's
another name.
Go get him.
There are rentals out there. I mean,
he could help you for 4 or 5 years. He's not expensive.
No, but from the Islanders' point of view, if they trade Travis Hamonic, they're probably going to want a defenseman back. Unless
not at all. No, not at all.
Unless they think Pulock and Mayfield and a couple other.
Pellick can play right now, and Pulock can play right now, and they're actually better with those guys in the lineup, in my opinion.
The bigger question there is whether they would let Garth Snow make that deal with the uncertain management situation.
Oh, it would have to be that would have to be a management-driven trade. But I mean, I think a JVR for Hamonic deal could work for both teams.
Yeah, that's the kind of trade that's made above Garth Snow's head.
Absolutely, I don't trust him to make any moves.
That's a Ledecky deal,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Right,
but I think there's something to that kind of deal. Like I said, one of the places that Van Riemsdyk has been rumored to go to, and there's no proof of this actually happening. But putting 2 and 2 together, Anaheim has always been a possibility. They need scoring. They're going for it this year. Carlisle is his ex-coach. All those things together. If they're trading with Anaheim, they're not trading for Vatanen, they're not trading for Lindholm, and they're not trading for Cam Fowler because Cam Fowler can go to free agency after in the summer of 2018. They're going for Brandon Montour. They're going for Shea Theodore.
Theodore would really help that team.
Yeah,
I disagree with this because of the people I've talked to first off, and then just my own opinion. But I'll throw my opinion on that, and that is that Cam Fowler is somebody that they're interested in, and is somebody that they're looking for.
Will Anaheim trade him, though? I guess is the question.
Anaheim might trade him. I mean, it's still a might, and and I think that's the same with James Van Riemsdyk. I think that's still a might as well. I think both of those guys are in the same boat. But if that trade is possible, it could benefit both teams, and it does actually put in a situation where, Cam Fowler, yeah, sure, he's a free agent after next season. Yeah. But I don't think that really. I mean, so is James Van Riemsdyk. So would you rather have a possibility of bringing back Fowler or Van Riemsdyk after next season? And if your team is doing well and your team starts to pick up momentum here, and Cam Fowler likes it in Toronto, then you're looking at you have a whole year and a half to win him over to the point where you can get him to sign. And if
would you rather give $6 million to Cam Fowler or JVR?
Right.
Well, if you're the Leafs, you'd rather give $6 million to Cam Fowler.
I would too.
Fowler, but the thing is, you're risking. And it's, you may be able to get some sort of indication before you make a trade like that, but you're risking the possibility of, if he doesn't like it in Toronto, he walks away for nothing, or they have to trade him before the deadline next year if he doesn't like it there. What you really want is the certainty of a player who is young, who is good, and who you have under control for a number of years. And that's the whole thing.
That's want
fair. That, and that's why I'm saying I think
But you can't have all those. That can't be your whole team. That's the problem. Is that's what Edmonton tried to do. They tried to make that their whole team. And at some point you have to go for these guys like the Cam Fowlers and see what happens. And some of them will work out, and maybe a few of them don't. But at the end of the day, you have to look at this as, okay, there are. I believe, just looking at that division, I think that Montreal's going to make the playoffs. And I think that Tampa's going to make the playoffs. I think at the end of the day, Tampa will find a way to make the playoffs, and Montreal But after that, you can throw Ottawa, Detroit, Toronto, and Boston into a pot and pick one. That to me, any one of those could end up coming out of there. Maybe two of them potentially, depending on how it plays out.
And I know based on everything that's gone on with both of these teams, it's a long shot, but things are close enough that even if Florida got things straightened out, or even if Buffalo got things straightened out, that they would be in the race. So yeah,
it's not that far out either. But I think that but of all those teams right now, if I had to pick one of those teams, I would say that Toronto's making it, because I think that they've got the most firepower, and they've got a good goalie, and they've got a great coach, and they can make a move to get a defenseman to make them as better than those other teams for sure. And then you go through there, and then why not? Then if you you can make the playoffs. Do you sit back and just not make the playoffs? Because
no, but you don't mortgage the future.
Of course not.
I think you have to. I mean, you have enough future. Like at some point, you have enough future to make a trade. The Flyers have enough defensemen to trade Travis Sanheim.
Right.
That is a big deal. And that's something that very few teams in the NHL have. Now, I don't. Travis Sanheim is doing phenomenal in not Hershey, in Lehigh Valley.
But I'm saying that type of deal is something that Toronto would do because they're getting future for short term. But I'm saying the opposite type. If it's them trading a Jeremy Bracco, or
don't you think they have enough offense to do that? I mean,
there's no, because Bozak is a free agent after next year. Komarov is a free agent after next year. Kadri, I think, eventually will be traded. I think they're building up Kadri's value to eventually trade him out of Toronto and get something.
I think Babcock loves Kadri.
I think he likes Kadri, but I also think that he's. I mean, Dan. $4.5 million for Kadri. He's never going to be their number one center. They have a couple guys.
4.5 for a guy who could probably put up close to 45 points is fine.
Yeah, I still think there's a possibility.
Crazy. I think it takes a lot to get Kadri out of there. That's why I said that's why when I heard the Dougie Hamilton thing, I'm like, well, that about sounds right to me. Like that actually.
Kadri has done everything they asked of him.
Oh, I'm not saying that he hasn't. I'm just saying that might be the price that they have to pay to get the type of defenseman they need to make that team complete.
Okay, depending on the player, then it obviously would depend on the player coming back.
Right, like if it's Dougie Hamilton for Kadri, I think that trade works for both teams.
Right. You're not doing that for a question mark.
Well, but the thing is like I don't think that they can afford. They played between 7 and 9 rookies this year, but they have other rookies in the pipeline. They have Kasper Kapanen, they have Bracco, they have this kid Carl Grundstrom who's playing for Team Sweden.
How many top 6 forwards can you have?
Well, I mean, I think maybe after another year and of evaluating, it's possible they could trade Kasper Kapanen or Brendan Leipzig or somebody like that. But I don't think that they're going to go out and trade. I mean, Bracco it hasn't even been signed yet. You'd have 3 years of a guy who played with Austin Matthews in the U.S. developmental system, who I think would be a point per game player playing with Matthews. So I don't,
probably.
Yeah,
is there any fear of him not signing there?
Well, he's he is because he played at Boston College to start his career. They have 4 years to sign him.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So they're safe. And I think they have the room to sign him.
Maybe he'll be your next Jimmy Vesey.
Oh my goodness! Let's not talk about that.
I'm joking. I
know. So other teams on this list that have moved up a lot, obviously Columbus has moved up a ton, and they are about as high as I've ever seen a buyer.
And they could buy whatever they want with all the prospects they have. They have prospects for days.
They have prospects for days. They've got cap space like crazy.
Yeah.
They are at 61.15. Now I can't remember a team being above 60 ever in the many years I've done this. And to get to 60, I mean, they rose 21 points in the last 16 days. And that obviously is going to happen when you win 16 in a row. But when you're in that spot, like that you're looking at here, I mean, they're now, almost 20 points ahead of their next strongest buyer in my Eastern Conference, which is Montreal. And
it's perfectly set up for Jarmo Kekalainen to take a run, not only because, not to say they're guaranteed to making the playoffs, but they're as close as anybody can be the way they're going right now. But he doesn't need to go out and add a defenseman because they're loaded on defense. It's gonna be adding a center or adding even a rental forward. Somebody, the only thing that they'll be concerned about is a veteran, somebody who will fit into what the current construct of the
team. Be the right kind of person, and it's got to be. Yeah. They can't screw with their chemistry. Exactly. Like I think that that this is probably the last place Jarome Iginla thought he would play at the end of his career, but. It's to me that's the kind of guy you go and get. This is
but as Russ has said on a few shows, are you going to trade for Jarome Iginla at the current spot in his career? I mean, one of the reasons he went to Colorado is because he could be a top 6 forward in Colorado. He's not going to be a top 6 forward in Columbus. He's not going to probably be a top 6 forward to any team that he's traded to. So you want
a guy like Dwight King, someone in the last year of their deal.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of. I mean, they can go for character players. They have so many character. They have. It has to be last year deal type thing because they have so many.
They don't really. If you look at them right now, do they really need anything?
I think that I disagree with Mike on the fact that I think they will go for a defenseman. Actually, I think
you can never have enough defensemen.
Right. I think that they know that you're going to go take a long. Like that's why I've heard, frankly, right outright. And that's why I keep professing that Cody Franzen is a good fit for them because he comes in there as your 7th, 6th, 7th. 8th defenseman, and that's what you need to go through the playoffs. I mean, you need 8 defensemen, and you need 8 NHL defensemen.
You do.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I mean, you look at their defense with Werenski, with Johnson, Savard, Murray, Seth Jones.
Murray's not been good. Murray's not been great though.
Yeah, but you're not going to go out and trade significant assets to add somebody to supplement.
You're not going to have to trade significant assets to get.
No, not at all.
I mean, maybe for Ginla, maybe you need like a third round pick or something like that. I think second or third round pick, and for Cody Franzen, like a fourth or fifth round pick.
Yeah, we're talking depth picks for the playoffs.
Right.
We're talking depth picks. You need a couple extra guys. So if someone goes down with a catastrophic injury, you're not playing a kid at big minute, 20 minutes. You could easily Cody Franzen could sit in the press box and come in and play on your bottom pairing.
But I think what they're going to focus on is getting themselves another scoring forward, because you're getting offense out of Atkinson and Foligno and Wenberg.
Yeah, the skill is a big thing in their world. Like they know they're getting, like you say, they're getting scoring, but they don't have a ton of skilled forwards. They have a ton of really just pure. Like Gagne, why he stands out there for them is that he is actually a skilled forward.
Because you look at this, how great they're playing, and it's masking average years from Brandon Dubinsky and Boone Jenner.
Right, and they expect more from them at any moment. So that and you both are, I mean, Boone Jenner is such a big part of that community, and they're both really popular players in that area. But you're right, Dubinsky's had a so-so year, and that puts them in a really weird spot. I mean, they really fixed themselves up a lot by moving Ryan Johansson last year. That really was a small, like as you look at it now, the way they sit now, that was such a huge deal for them, because for a lot of reasons, but the main reason is they just could never get Johansson under contract, and it was always hanging over their heads that they had to deal with something. They had to deal with, okay, we got him for 2 years, we got him for 1 more year, okay, now, and then there were always these long protracted negotiations. The fact he's not there and they don't have to deal with that, I think is huge in so many levels around the team, and the fact that Seth Jones is signed and just sealed and delivered, and he's there for a while.
He's steady and he's stable, and his offense is coming around. And you look at Johansson, the same questions that the Blue Jackets had for him, the Predators now have for him. Yeah, there's just something about him where he has the talent to be an elite player, and it's just not there.
Now, I didn't look up this team on your list, Ack, but I know that there's been some talk since they've started to win and they're climbing closer to a playoff spot about what Vancouver is going to do. Because Vancouver,
I haven't put out yet. That's my Western Conference, so I haven't put that out yet.
Okay.
But they are definitely moving up on the list. I mean, so I only did the Eastern today, but so we'll talk about the Western tomorrow. But the Eastern,
we'll say Vancouver then.
Yeah, we'll say Vancouver. The team I thought you were talking about, because all the things you're saying, like I thought, oh, he's leading to this team, is the former Hartford Whaler Carolina Hurricanes, who have moved up now to number 11, which is and they are at minus 3.25 points, which means that once you get to 0, you're a buyer. So now they've moved up, from that's 10 points up from like minus 13 to minus 3.
And where they're going to add is offense, because Pesce, Slavin, Falk, Hanifin, and Hainsey, their
defense is nice. They have a nice defense,
nice and solid, and
that's the big thing with a couple teams. There aren't many teams that have, because almost everyone's looking for defense. Right. So it's like there aren't many teams that have, like the Flyers, the Hurricanes are 2 teams that have a lot of depth there, and they can make a move there to get more scoring, which is rare. I mean, because there really aren't that many other teams that are like that right now. Especially in the East. When I look through these teams, it's really not. I mean, so the Carolina Hurricanes are the third highest moving team, actually, and then the 4th highest moving team in the positive direction is the Islanders, who have gone up to a minus 14.7, which is, so they went from a strong seller to a likely seller, and they're right on the edge of a possible seller. So they've moved it up. Now that's still it's only a jump from 15 to 13, but we haven't talked to you since the Halak situation, Dan, and I wanted to kind of get your opinion on that one.
Well, it's not completely unexpected. They had to do something. The frustrating thing is they had all summer to do this. Right. This is, it's just Garth Snow. I don't know if he's overplaying his hand. Did he want too much for Halak? It's just like you look at Pittsburgh, right? With the start of the season when Murray was hurt to start the season, right? Mm-hmm. They went and they got Mike Condon. Murray came back. They traded Mike Condon for a draft pick.
Right.
It's like, what are you doing? I get you're scared to lose JF Berube to waivers. The guy's played 12 NHL games. He's not your future goalie. Maybe he is a backup NHL goalie, but your best goalie is over in Russia, Ilya Sorokin. That's the guy you're waiting for.
Right.
So it's like, why are you scared to lose him for waivers? I am sure you could have got Berube to LA or San Jose or one of those teams for a 4th or 5th round pick, or you just cut bait with Halak earlier. It's just you take a situation that you know is a problem. You have all summer to rectify it. It becomes an unnecessary distraction for a team that has distractions, and now you are where you are, and you got an all-star goalie in Bridgeport, and now he's taking starts from kids down there. So it's just a stupid situation and unnecessary.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I mean, I think did the World Cup of Hockey screw them up? Because to me, it felt like it did.
Maybe.
It felt like the fact that Halak went in there and had a good, solid World Cup of Hockey.
I don't think Halak has had a terrible year. He's been, for some reason, I mean, he's kept them in a lot of games. The defense has just been awful. Their possession numbers are all-time bad. They just can't break out of their own zone cleanly, which leads to these chances. But, I mean, for some weird reason, the team plays better for Grice. I don't understand it, but it's just if you look with your eyes, the team plays better for Grice. I don't know what it is. So it is what it is. I mean, it sucks that he's down there.
That's something that hasn't troubled Halak throughout his career, by the way. You know, that
You're
is
right.
What happened in St. Louis. That's what happened in Montreal. The other goalie, even though Halak would continually put up just as good numbers and look just as solid in there, the other goalie was always the goalie. I think a lot of it has to do with just the fact he's just doesn't look like your typical NHL goalie.
Right.
In fact, he's smaller than he should be. He's a little bit less conventional than he should be, and yet what Halak has shown he can do, which is what he showed again this summer, is the fact that he can win in big games and that he can play. The run he took Montreal on, but then the injuries that have plagued him right around playoff time in both St. Louis and the Island have been an issue.
Yeah.
So
I mean, look, the guy's 9-1 against the Rangers. I mean, he comes up, he steps up for big games, always plays well against the Capitals. But I mean, it is what it is. At least the distraction's over with. You can see what you have with Berube. The funny thing is, though, if Berube doesn't play 28 games, he becomes a free agent. So after all of this, you might lose everyone. It's just.
Well, they're going to play him 28 games then, right? They're going to find a way.
You're going to have to find a way for you to get him 28 starts for the rest of the season, I guess. I don't know. Who knows?
But when your season becomes about getting a goalie 28 games to not become a free agent, then you've got issues, and that's
right. It's just a mess. I mean, they have this summer and this spring, starting the day the season ends, to fix this mess and to show that to John Tavares that he's worth re-signing. Right. He should re-sign. They have this spring and summer to get the right people in place to say, look, we understand. The past organization has failed you to get elite talent around you. Here we go. That's what they have to do.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. I mean,
because if he doesn't sign in July, this is very unpopular, what I'm about to say. This is very unpopular. If he doesn't sign July 1st and says, let's see how it plays out, I think you have to listen to trade offers. That's his highest value is going to be on July 1st. It's not going to be next trade deadline. You can't lose him for nothing. If you traded him this summer, you can get a king's ransom for him.
No, you could. If you put him up, if you went to the draft with Tavares available, you would really be able to get almost anything you wanted.
I hope that never happens. Believe me, I hope they do the right thing. I hope these new owners do the right thing. They've talked a big game. We need to see some action from them because I feel like they've thrown away a whole season at the expense of this offseason.
There was talk of Tampa. I don't think Tampa ever really legitimately thought that they were going to trade Steven Stamkos, but before the no move clause kicked in on July 1st last year, July 15, there was talk about Buffalo being very interested in trading for Stamkos. So I don't know how realistic that is, but if that's the case, and you're coming up on July of 2017, and that's when you can talk long-term contract with Tavares, and he's like, let's play this out. Right. Then the Islanders have to exercise, okay, well, if he wants to play this out, that means he wants to test the market at least.
Right.
Which is what Stamkos did. And then Stamkos decided, okay, I'm going to go back because we're on the verge of winning a Stanley Cup. John Tavares can't say that about the Islanders. Not on the verge of anything right now.
No, they're not. So it's like they have to – now if spring comes and they get a proven team president, a big-name general manager, and a big-time coach, and they say, John, we're going to fix it this summer. We're going to put it in the right direction. We're going to get some talent around you. I think he'll sign. I really do.
I do too. I think so too. He wants to stay there.
He does. He wants it. He's looking for reasons to stay there, but they have to get. No one could fault him for leaving though, because it's like the players he's had to play with over the past 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, it's cruel and unusual punishment at times.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
Just go back to Carolina for a second. Carolina will be looking for offense, but the thing is that every general manager that talks to Ron Francis is going to be asking for any one of the defensemen that we just mentioned, Pesci, Slavin. I don't think they're going to trade Falk. They're not definitely.
You could trade Hayden Fleury though.
That's exactly who I was going to say. If they if they have Fleury down in Charlotte, former top 10 pick, 20 or 21 years old, they can trade that guy and get somebody. And I'm not talking about a rental. I'm talking about getting somebody who can be there for 4 or 5 years. And along with Skinner and along with the Teravainen and Aho, and they would have enough offense to maybe make a run at a playoff spot.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I don't think we're going to see many rental trades at the deadline, but I do think we're going to see trades. I think we're going to see this year. I really think we're going to see player for player trades. We started to see it last summer. Obviously, like the Shea Weber, Saban trade, the Taylor Hall trade, the
Seth Jones trade.
Yeah, I mean, these are all player for player trades, and
I think you're still going to see rental deals for a few reasons, Zach. I mean, not a ton of them, not as many in the past, but a team like Chicago is probably not interested in anything more than a rental because of all the long-term money they have.
There are a few teams like that, but there aren't many.
I don't think you're going to see a lot of first-round draft picks flying around, though.
Oh, I actually think that you'll see more first-round picks floating around this deadline than before, simply because the 2017 draft is not held in as high regard right now as the last 2 drafts.
And the funny thing is, they say that going into the trade deadline, and we will get to draft day, and people will be saying, "This is a good draft. This is a sneaky good draft."
Yeah, okay.
And then we'll look back at it 3 years from now, saying, "This was a really good draft."
I think Washington will trade their first-round pick if they can get something that helps them. I think Chicago has traded their first-round picks 2 years in a row. One for Andrew Ladd, one for Vermette. I think they'll do it again because they keep getting kids from college as undrafted free agents who are basically like getting first-round picks. Or like Panarin from the KHL. So why not? If you can get yourself a player that helps you win now, give up the first-round pick.
Oh yeah, they have no problem trading picks. I mean, Chicago.
At some point, though, you need to get players in your organization on entry-level deals.
But they are at the point now where they have they find guys, so late, like they did with like DeBrincat, for example, or something like that, where you get a player who
that's true. I forgot about him.
They just get players that everybody expects to be first-round picks, not in the first round.
True.
And Forsling and Ryan Hartman, they get players in the second, third, fourth rounds or late first round in the past that fit into the situation. So
because they're willing to, because they have the depth, they're willing to take chances on players that everybody else is a little bit afraid of.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, teams have fear of these guys like Forsling and DeBrincat. They have, whether it's size or whether it's history or whatever. There's
he's a little too small. Oh, he's a little too slow. We'll take him right
Chicago
now.
Doesn't care. Chicago will take it, and they'll make it run.
Hartman looks like a useful hockey player, doesn't he?
He looks like Andrew Shaw 3 years ago.
He looks exactly like Andrew Shaw from 3 years ago. Yes.
Arizona will expect to get a first-round pick in a deal for Martin Hansel, and they will get it from a team because his salary's not big. He's a big player. He can play up the middle. I think he can play the wing as well. I mean, that's somebody that fits in with the.
He could help Columbus.
He could help Columbus. He could help Montreal because right now Montreal with Galchenyuk, with Desharnais out, their number one center is Placanis. Their number two center is Philip Deneau. So I mean, come on.
Don't you know?
I don't think they're going to mess. I don't think Columbus would go for him. Just from what I've heard, but I think Washington might. I think that I could see Hansel ending up in Washington, but there's a lot of different, possibilities there. Teams that have fallen back and they're heading towards sellership, are interesting as well. You always get that too. So, right now, but Washington actually Washington actually moved up into becoming a strong buyer now too. They moved up from the likely buyer to the strong buyer category. And that's the Capitals are, the top 5 teams in the East are the top 5 teams in the East. There's just no two ways about it.
Well, in watching that game last night, I mean, this is not the same Washington team as it was last year. Holtby is mortal. He gave up 3 goals on 8
they really lack a discipline. I'm kind of surprised. I've noticed that too. Like Trotz's teams in general. Oh, this is the thing about Barry Trotz. Like watching him all the years. Like last year he comes in, of course, and he makes a really big impact, and he turns that team into a really solid 2-way team. But You know, I've seen Trotz do this before, but I've also seen Trotz have his years in Nashville where they started off like this, like the Capitals are. And, you know, it's almost as if he doesn't have to get them going yet. And he almost paces himself a little bit on them. I think there's a spot at which he doesn't want to be the coach that wears you out. Like he had to last year be the coach that would wear you out. But if you do that for too many years, you become Peter Laviolette, or you become Tortorella, and you wear a team out. Trotz knows when not to lower the hammer, and right now he sees his team in solid playoff spot, and he sees them going along, and he's not going to push them probably for another month or so.
No, but I also think that they're in a position now where I think they have to go for it. Everybody, you've got everybody in the right position and at the right age with the right experience, and they may need that one player just to put them over the top. I mean, I don't know who that would be right now. I mean, if Matt Duchene is truly on the market, then maybe a Matt Duchene or somebody of that ilk. They have players that they probably would be willing to move out, like a Marcus Johansson, who they went to the mat with in arbitration, or a Dmitry Orlov, or maybe even Carl Alzner, who's a pending UFA. They have pieces they can move, but I think they need that one more player on top of what they have to be able to get by the Pittsburghs and get by maybe Columbus in their division.
I think Orlov makes sense because if he stays in the Capitals roster, I think he's the perfect target for Vegas.
Well,
he's a guy who could play top 4 minutes for Vegas.
Yeah. The only way they can avoid that is not sign Alzner until after the expansion draft, or until after July 1st.
Yeah, and I think Alzner's going to test free agency.
Yeah,
I think so too. I mean, and I think the Capitals have to let him do that too. I think they have to.
Do.
I don't think because they can't go. You know, Alzner is not in that level where they have to bring him back, but they really do want to bring him back, and he might very well want to come back. So, I mean, the Capitals players that I've talked to really like being on the Capitals. That's a close-knit team. So, you know, that's why Brooks Lake last year, I think, really affected them. I really do. I still believe that affected them. You know, and at the end of the day, they just met the Penguins, who were just so good that it was hard to, you know, and I think that there's no real team like the Penguins from last year right now.
No.
I mean, I guess the Blue Jackets are technically, but you know, they
still. I mean, look, they still have never won a playoff series as a franchise.
Yeah, they haven't won a playoff series.
It's great. They're a great story, and I'm rooting for them. I hope they do great, but let's pump the brakes on that a little.
Yeah. I think the Caps look at this conference like it's very winnable.
I still think it's the Penguins' conference right now until you beat the champ. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Right now, if Washington went with the 7-3-1 in expansion, they have to protect Orpik because Orpik's got a no move clause. Oof. They'll protect Carlson and they'll protect Niskanen.
Right
now, and if they do that, Orlov is exposed. And you're right, George McPhee, who I think drafted him, will pick him up. And he's
a good player. He's a good player on a worse team would play a much bigger role.
Now, if they protect 8 skaters and they protect Orlov, that's at the cost of losing, and they'll protect Kuznetsov, they'll protect Ovechkin, Backstrom. You know, they may lose Johansson, they may lose Tom Wilson, Burakovsky. I mean, who would you rather lose? In the way the league is right now, I would rather lose the forward than lose.
Yes, I'd rather lose Tom Wilson or Burakovsky.
Yeah. I mean, Wilson would be a really sound pickup, though. He would. But I mean, not that, I think because he's got the potential.
Plus, I would love to have him out in the Western Conference and only have to look at his face. Only have to look at his face twice a year.
Yeah, like I think of him like David Backes kind of. I think he could, at the end of the day, he could really become a player. Let's talk about the World Juniors, which are going on, of course, right now. And in an hour from now, I believe, right?
3 o'clock on NHL Network.
NHL Network.
I thought 5:30 was the USA game.
No, that was 3 and 8. I'll double check.
I thought it was 5:30 and 8.
I'll check. Well, that would be overlapping. I probably wouldn't do that because if it was a 5:30 start, 2.5 hours, there's no way that they'd be able to.
I could have swore it was a 5 and an 8 or something like that.
I'll check.
Yeah, I thought it was actually 3 and 6. How about that? I'll throw that out there. That's what I thought it was. But I might be totally wrong. But yeah, Mike will find out, of course. So yeah, we've got. I mean, these are two fun games to watch today. I mean, if you have nothing going on, definitely sit back and watch these games on the NHL Network and see some definite future stars. This is the chance for the USA team to really to prove everybody wrong, like that they brought the right players. First off, they've already done that to a degree.
They look like they brought the right team. This team is really good, really good.
But the Russian team is always is definitely the World Juniors thorn in the side for the USA team.
They're a pain in the butt, yes.
3 p.m. for U.S. Russia, 7:30 for
7:30. Okay, so the 3 p.m. for U.S. Russia.
Yeah. Now, a little bit of it wasn't breaking news, it wasn't completely unexpected, but the U.S. is starting Tyler Parsons in goal, who won the Memorial Cup last year with the London Knights. They had been going with the goalie rotation, which would have meant going with Joseph Wall, the Leaf draft pick in this game. But they're going.
It's funny how many Maple Leaf fans are so interested in the American goalies just because of Wall.
Well, he's a good young goalie. I mean,
he is, but I'll make it seem like every time a goal goes in, it's Parsons' fault.
But without Americans, the Leafs would be in trouble. Put it that way.
That's this is how we make Canadian hockey teams great again. Keep drafting Americans.
That's right. Montreal and Toronto have shown that.
Don't keep America great again.
Please. Keep drafting Americans, and you guys will be in the playoffs in no time.
But the thing is, I think in the goaltending matchup in that game, Samsonov is an excellent goaltender for Russia. I think the key to this game is the U.S. Continuing. I mean, I think they didn't generate enough offense against the Swiss. The Swiss was able to shut them down.
Swiss are a pain in the butt, though. I knew that was going to be one of those games. I just felt that was going to be a pain in the butt game.
The Russians are not as good defensively, but they're much better offensively. Even though
I think they could have gotten a little bit of a game plan from the Swiss, the way the Swiss did that, because I think the United States is significantly faster than the Russians, and I think the Swiss could skate with the Americans.
Yes,
I don't know if the Russians can skate with the Americans.
That's fair. So, are we going to see a USA Canada final? What do you guys think?
No, I think it's I think Sweden is going to beat Canada.
Wow.
That's going on.
Mike in Buffalo. Send all your complaints there.
Well, no, there's a number of factors. I mean, what everybody is saying. I think Canada is playing the worst of their two goalies. I think Hart is the better goalie, but I'm
confused by that. I'm very confused by that move.
They've gone with Ingram, and they're sticking with Ingram. They've lost Philip Myers on defense, and instead of playing, giving defensemen like Fabro more, they've been leaning heavily on a guy like Thomas Chabot, who's played really well. But
he's been great.
But they're giving a player like Kyle Clegg more ice time, which is a little puzzling. And guys like Dylan Strome really have not. He started off the tournament well, but he hasn't really contributed a lot. It's been mostly Matthew Barzal and Taylor Radish. I think that Canada is good and they have all the capability of winning the tournament, but the Swedes, they had the same two goaltenders they had in the World Junior last year. They have the best line in the tournament with Eriksson, Ek, Grunstrom, and Alex Nylander. They're just a more complete team. If they don't get phased by the emotion of that, and it's very possible.
I don't think they will. I don't see Swede teams get phased that often by emotion. I mean,
that's their thing.
I give Sweden a good chance to beat Canada.
The thing is, it's been Canada's play at even strength. It's just been. It's been okay. It hasn't been dominant. They've been great at their special teams have been good, but their goaltending is a little suspect.
Yeah,
and just like I said, they have been there. The United States took for a while in that game took it to them at even strength.
And if Team Canada's coach is relying on bulletin board material to motivate his team, then that he thinks this is going to be a close game, because he came out and said, well, the Swedes, they've they don't have exactly a history of winning key games at key times. So like, okay, just shut up and concentrate on the game, and don't have to go out and say that kind of stuff. But if he's playing the psychological game, then he knows he has to play that type of game to win the game.
I think the Swedes could care less.
I think this is a really vitally important game for Dylan Strome. I'm going to throw that out there right now.
I agree. He's had an average tournament.
And in terms of his career and in terms of moving forward, in terms of where he ends up, because, obviously he's an Arizona player right now, but he, if he gets moved or not if they move him or if somebody else grabs him. Yeah, I know the Islanders have had long interest in him.
Please, I mean, come on, we go one Strom's enough.
I think you'd like him now. I think you'd like Dylan Strom.
I don't know. I feel like there's something missing with him.
I do too, and I think I do.
And I already have a Strom in my organization where I feel something's missing with him.
Right, that's true. That's true.
With that being said, though, he's actually been good for the last.
Than that one does. And this one has. I think what I think is that we will see a big game out of Dylan Strom. That's my prediction. I think you will see, and you've seen this before in the World Juniors. The guys who are NHLers who ended up back at the World Juniors, even though they started the year kind of in the NHL, tend to wait until like the medal rounds to pick it up. And you know, I've noticed this before. It's just one of these things you see, and I don't know whether it's just the fact that they feel a little bit embarrassed or weird about playing in this tournament when they already in their heads they were already in the NHL, and this is going back to where they were before. And it's a little bit of a throwback thing, but I think that when the spotlight comes on tonight, I think you'll see the players who have played like Dylan Strom. There's no question, no matter what you throw out there, the experience of going through a NHL camp, playing with an NHL team, being benched by and trying to make it, all that is something that he can pull on tonight that a lot of those other players don't have. And that's
the whole world's watching tonight too. The whole hockey world will be watching.
Yeah, and I think he and a couple of the other guys who are in similar situations.
Yeah, I mean Barzal,
right.
Blake Spears for Canada, Shabbat was with the Senators for a while, but you can say the same thing about the Swedes. I mean, Eric Senaka was with Minnesota. So
did Shabbat play at all for the Senators this year?
Yeah, he played a few games.
He did.
He started, I think. I remember getting a goal.
8 or 9. I think he got to the 9-game mark.
Okay.
So I mean, those guys are going to be the ones who are going to pick it up. And then I think if we get a USA Canada final, I think it'll be a really great game. And I too agree with you that Canada's not playing the right goalie. I've noticed in the past couple of World Juniors, I've been very suspicious of I think Canada brings the right players, but how they play their players.
And believe me, my opinion apparently is in the minority. I talked to some people during the Centennial Classic weekend, and I said that, and they were like, "Oh, I'd rather go with Ingram because they just don't, But the thing is, it's like, I mean,
I don't think either of them scare me though. If I'm
either, Hart is so young, right? And that's true. He is young, but
right. And Ingram is, I think Ingram is 19, but against the Czechs, he gave up 3 goals. I think one of them he had no chance on, but the other 2 I thought weren't exactly great. And he gave up 3 goals on less than 20 shots. So
and Hart has shown that he has the ability to win games by himself this year in the juniors. But
the thing is, Zach, they've gone with Ingram 2 games in a row.
Oh, I know. They're staying with him.
They're stuck. They're stuck with them, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it would be fascinating to see if they got into some kind of shootout tonight with Sweden. What they would do in a final game, because But I think at this point you got to stay with them, or they will at least. That'll be their tendency, and sometimes they don't always play the right players on. But I mean, both goalies are, like you said, Dan. Neither goalie is going to knock your socks out right now.
But we said that before the tournament even started.
But Hart has a lot more potential to do that, and the more of the ability to possibly pitch that kind of game that you need to win this thing. So that's my opinion, at least.
And we always have to consider that in a close game, and a lot of these games are close, the officiating will have a great deal of effect on the outcome of the score. And if you watch that U.S.-Switzerland game, I have not seen worse refereeing in my life than there were some calls that were jaw-droppingly bad. So I mean. Wow. And in that case, sometimes the home country gets a little bit of the benefit, and I'm sure people in Canada will be very happy if that happens. But
there is a lot of pressure on those refs up there.
Sure. Yes.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, guys. But thank you so much, Dan, for joining us as always.
Oh, real quick, before we go, I have to say congratulations to Matthew Pekka. He became the first alumni to score a goal in the NHL last night. So that's a big moment for the university and the program. So congratulations to him, and hopefully many more to come.
Very, very good. Remember that name. Remember, guys, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We'll be back tomorrow. I think we have Russ. We might have Russ back tomorrow. We don't know. Russ is at the games today. So we'll talk to you then. So long.